There's been a lot of attention recently on President Barack Obama's dropping job approval rating, and indeed it is down. In our latest weekly Gallup poll average, his approval rating was 41%, which is low. The average job approval rating for all presidents is in the 50% range. But today, I would call your attention to something that we haven't been looking quite as much at since the government shutdown, and that is Congress job approval rating. A new record low. In our update for November, 9% of Americans approve of the job Congress is doing, and by 1 point, as I mentioned, that's the lowest in our history of tracking that measure. The previous low was 10%, and we reached that 10% level twice last year, back in 2012. Now, Congress approval has never been high. Let's look at a few statistics here. Overall, the mean across time when we average all yearly averages through last year has been 33%. That's pretty low. But the 9%, as noted, is the lowest we've seen in history. People ask, what's the highest in history? Well, that actually came after 9/11. Remember, we had a rally effect after September 11, 2001, where the presidential job approval rating went to the highest in history, 90% for George W. Bush, and Congress approval rating shortly thereafter went to the highest in history at 84%. However, Congress approval had been rising before 9/11. That was through the end of the Clinton years, the dot-com boom, and into the year 2000. In fact, in 2000, job approval for the entire year was 49%, well above average. So in general, some of the highest points in our history of measuring congressional job approval rating came in the late 1990s and then after 9/11 for a few years thereafter. I should point out there have been a couple of other points in time where congressional job approval ratings have been particularly low. One of those was back in 1979. Jimmy Carter was president. We had inflation, hostages in Iran came a bit later, and so forth. And the one job approval rating measure we had that year was 19%. Another low point came in 1992. That was a time when, again, we had very bad economic troubles in the U.S. George H.W. Bush, the president, saw his job approval rating fall into the 20s. So if you look at the graph, the low points were 1979, 1992, and now we're back over the last several years, including in particular this year, to another dip, low point, trough in Americans' approval of the job their representatives here to Congress are doing. I'm Dr. Frank Newport, Gallup Editor-in-Chief.